Jake Morrison stood at the huge glass doors of Kepler Station University and took a deep breath. His hands were shaking a little, but he tried to hide it. This was the biggest moment of his life. After months of tests and interviews, he was one of only 12 humans chosen for the Galactic Educational Exchange Program. He was going to teach alien students about biology. The university looked nothing like the schools on Earth. It was built into an asteroid, with tunnels and rooms carved deep into the rock. Strange lights glowed from the walls, and the air smelled different. Not bad, just different. Jake could hear sounds he had never heard before, clicks, whistles, and musical notes that came from the alien students walking around. Jake was nervous, but he was also excited. He had always loved animals and plants. As a kid, he had caught frogs and snakes in his backyard. His mother used to worry when he brought home injured birds to help them heal. His friends thought he was crazy when he chose to study dangerous animals in college. But Jake understood something that most people did not. Every creature, no matter how scary it looked, had reasons for what it did. The dean of the university was waiting for him in the main hall. Dean Zethkar was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The alien looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was tall and thin, with sharp edges that caught the light. When it moved, it made soft ringing sounds like wind chimes. Its voice was musical but cold. "Professor Morrison," the dean said, and Jake could hear doubt in its voice. "I must admit, the university board is still not sure about this decision. Earth is classified as a Category 9 death world. Your planet is one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy that still has intelligent life." Jake nodded. He had heard this before. Most aliens came from what they called garden worlds. These were peaceful planets where the biggest danger might be a storm or maybe an animal that ate too many crops. The idea of a world where giant predators hunted other animals, where plants could be poisonous, and where the weather could kill you was terrifying to them. "I understand your concerns," Jake said carefully, "but I think that is exactly why I can help your students. I can teach them things that professors from safer worlds cannot." The dean made a sound like glass breaking softly. Jake was not sure if that was good or bad. "Your students are waiting," the dean said finally. "Please remember that many of them have never seen a human before. They are afraid." Jake walked through the corridors to his classroom. Other alien students pressed against the walls as he passed. Some pointed at him and whispered in languages he did not understand. Others just stared with eyes that were too big, too small, or in places where eyes should not be. The classroom was large and circular, with strange furniture that could change shape for different types of students. Jake's class had 17 students from different planets and species. As he walked in, they all went quiet and moved away from him. Near the front sat a group of Clixians. They looked like large insects with 6 legs and big compound eyes. Their antennae twitched nervously as Jake moved around the room. Behind them were 3 Villari, aliens who looked almost human except their skin was clear like glass. Colors moved under their skin like slow lightning. Right now, those colors were dark purple and red, which Jake had learned meant fear and worry. On the left side of the room, some Thornids sat in special dirt boxes. They looked like walking trees with rough bark skin and leaves growing from their heads. They had moved their boxes as far from Jake as possible. Near the back, a group of Zephyrians floated in the air. They were round and soft, like living clouds, and they glowed with a pale blue light. Jake had studied all of these species before coming here. He knew their languages, their cultures, and their biology. What he had not been ready for was how scared they all were of him. "Good morning, everyone," Jake said softly. He had learned to speak quietly around aliens. His normal voice was too loud for most of them. "I'm Professor Morrison, but you can call me Jake. I am here to teach you about biology and how different species live together." One of the Clixians, a female named Buzzeth, raised one of her front legs. "Professor," she said in a voice like buzzing bees, "is it true that humans eat other living creatures?" Jake paused. This was a question he had expected. Most of the galaxy's intelligent species were plant eaters or lived on things like sunlight and minerals. The idea of eating meat was horrifying to them, Yes, Jake said honestly. Humans are omnivores. We eat both plants and animals. But we also protect animals. We have laws against hurting animals for no reason. We take care of pets and help injured wild animals. The students looked at each other. Some of the Valari's skin turned brighter red. A thornid named Groveseed rustled his leaves in what Jake knew was distress. But how can you kill and protect at the same time? Asked a Valari student named Silcandria. Her skin was flickering between purple and green, showing confusion. Jake thought about how to explain this. On Earth, everything is connected, he said. Plants need animals to spread their seeds. Animals need plants for food and shelter. Predators keep herbivore populations healthy by hunting the sick and weak. Death is part of life. We learn to understand this balance, not fight against it. The students were quiet for a long moment. Then a Zephyrian named Windsong asked, "Are you going to hurt us?" The question made Jake's heart hurt. These young beings were so afraid of him that they thought he might attack them in their own classroom. He sat down on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. "No," he said firmly. "I am here to teach you and learn from you. Humans do not hurt people who are not trying to hurt us. We especially do not hurt children or students. You are safe with me." Silcandria's skin started to show tiny flecks of yellow, which Jake had learned meant curiosity. "What is your world really like?" she asked. Jake smiled. "It is beautiful and terrible at the same time. We have flowers that can kill you and butterflies that look like jewels. We have storms that can destroy cities and sunsets that make you cry from happiness. We have animals that could eat you in one bite, and others so small you need a microscope to see them. Every day on Earth you have to be careful and smart to survive." "That sounds horrible," whispered Groveseed. "It sounds amazing," said Buzzeth, her antennae perking up with interest. Jake looked around the room. Some students still looked scared, but others were starting to lean forward. He could see that curiosity was beginning to win over fear. "Earth made us what we are," Jake continued. "We learned to watch and listen. We learned to understand what animals were thinking by how they moved and what sounds they made. We learned to be patient and calm even when we were scared. We learned that sometimes the most dangerous-looking creature is just afraid and needs help." As Jake spoke, he noticed something important. The students were not just listening to his words. They were watching how he moved, how he breathed, how he sat. They were using their own survival instincts to judge whether he was dangerous. And slowly, some of them were deciding that he was not. The first day ended with Jake giving them a simple assignment. Observe one creature in their daily life and write about its behavior. As the students left, a few of them nodded to him. Silcandria even let her skin flash a quick pattern of gold, which meant "thank you" in Valari culture. Jake sat alone in the empty classroom and smiled. It was going to be a long journey to earn their trust, but he could see it was possible. These students were smart and curious. They just needed time to see that being from a death world did not make him a monster. It made him a teacher who understood something they had never had to learn: how to live with danger and find beauty in it. 3 weeks had passed since Jake's first day at Kepler Station University. Every morning, he walked through the corridors and noticed small changes. The alien students no longer pressed themselves against the walls when he passed. Some even nodded at him or made the greeting sounds of their species. It was progress, but Jake knew he still had a long way to go. In his classroom, Jake worked carefully to make his students feel safe. He always moved slowly and told them what he was going to do before he did it. When he needed to walk across the room, he would say, "I am going to get the projector now." When he wanted to show them something with his hands, he would warn them, "First, I am going to make the shape of a DNA spiral with my fingers. Do not worry." The students were starting to relax, but Jake could see they still thought of him as strange and dangerous. They were polite, but they kept their distance. Jake understood this. On Earth, when people met a new dog, they let the dog sniff there. Hand first, they did not force the animal to trust them. Jake decided to treat his students the same way. Silcandria was the first to show real interest in Jake's lessons. The young Valari had skin that changed colors with her emotions, and Jake was learning to read her feelings. During his lectures about Earth's ecosystems, her skin would turn bright gold and silver. These were the colors of fascination and wonder. She asked questions that showed she was really thinking about what Jake taught. "Professor Jake," she said one day, her skin flickering with curious yellow spots, "you said that humans developed good reflexes because of danger. Can you show us what you mean?" Jake thought about this carefully. He did not want to scare his students, but he also wanted them to understand. "I can show you something simple," he said. "But I need you to trust me. I will not hurt anyone." The classroom went quiet. Some students moved back in their seats. But Silkandria's skin showed brave orange colors, and she nodded. Jake walked to his desk and picked up a small ball used for demonstrations. Without warning, he threw it gently toward Silkandria. Her reflexes were slow compared to a human's, and the ball bounced off her shoulder. She looked surprised, but not hurt. "Now, watch," Jake said. He asked Buzzeth, one of the Clixian students, to throw the ball at him. When she did, Jake caught it easily without even looking directly at it. The students made sounds of amazement. "This is not magic," Jake explained. "This is what happens when you grow up on a world where things fall from trees, where flying creatures might dive at you, where you need to react quickly to stay safe. My brain learned to track moving objects and respond fast. All humans can do this." Grove Seed, one of the Thorned students, rustled his leaves thoughtfully. "So your dangerous world made you better at surviving?" "Yes," Jake said, "but it also made us better at other things. We learned to watch for small changes in behavior. We learned to stay calm when things go wrong. We learned to solve problems quickly." Over the following days, Jake began to share more stories about Earth. He told them about how humans had learned to live with wolves, turning them into dogs. He explained how people in his hometown would rescue injured wild animals and help them heal. He described how human children were taught to respect nature, not fear it. Buzzeth started staying after class to ask questions. She was particularly interested in Earth's insects. "You said that humans are afraid of some insects but keep others as pets?" she asked one day. "That's right," Jake said. "We are afraid of insects that can hurt us, like wasps or poisonous spiders. But we also keep helpful insects like bees, and some people keep beetles or butterflies. We learn to tell the difference." "How do you tell the difference?" Buzzeth asked, her antennae twitching with curiosity. Jake thought about how to explain this. "We watch their behavior. Aggressive insects move in certain ways. They make warning sounds or show bright colors. Peaceful insects act differently. They move slowly, they focus on food or building their homes. We learn to read these signs." Buzzeth was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You read our behavior too, don't you?" "You know when we are scared or curious?" Jake nodded. "Yes, all humans learn to do this. We watch body language, listen to voice tones, look for changes in how people act. It helps us understand each other better." The breakthrough moment came during Jake's 4th week of teaching. He had planned a lesson about ecological disasters and how different species respond to them. He set up a simulation where the students had to deal with a pretend crisis, a volcanic eruption that was destroying their planet's main food source. Jake divided the class into groups and gave them different roles. Some were government officials, others were scientists, and some were ordinary citizens. Then he activated the simulation. Immediately, chaos broke out. The Clixian students started buzzing loudly and running around the room. The Valari students' skin turned bright red with panic. The Thornids pulled their branches close to their bodies and refused to move. The Zephyrians floated to the ceiling and would not come down. Jake watched the panic for a few moments, then walked calmly to the center of the room. "Stop," he said in a firm but not loud voice. Something in his tone made all the students freeze. "Take a deep breath," Jake said. "Panic will not solve the problem. Let's think about this step by step." He walked over to the simulation controls and paused the disaster. Then he turned to face his students. "What do we know about the problem?" he asked. Slowly, the students began to calm down. Silkandria says, Skin faded from bright red to pale pink. "The volcano is destroying the main food plants," she said. "Good," Jake said. "What else?" "The ash is poisoning the water," added Groveseed. "And the heat is making it hard for creatures to live near the volcano," said Buzz single quotes ES. Jake nodded. "Now, what can we do about each of these problems?" For the next hour, Jake guided his students through the crisis step by step. He showed them how to break a big problem into smaller parts. He taught them to stay calm and think clearly even when they were scared. He helped them see that working together was better than panicking alone. By the end of the lesson, the students had developed a plan to save their simulated planet. They found new food sources, cleaned the water, and created safe zones for the population. They had solved the crisis. As the students packed up their things, Jake noticed something different. They were talking to each other excitedly about the lesson. More importantly, they were looking at him with new expressions. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Respect. Silcandria approached Jake's desk as the other students left. Her skin was showing colors he had never seen before, deep gold mixed with silver and tiny flecks of green. "Professor Jake," she said quietly, "I think I understand now. You are not dangerous because you want to hurt us. You are dangerous because you know how to survive anything. That makes you a good teacher," Jake smiled. "Thank you, Silcandria. That means a lot to me." As she left, Jake realized that this was the moment he had been working toward. His students were beginning to see that being from a death world did not make him a monster. It made him someone who could teach them skills they had never needed to learn. But Jake also knew that understanding was just the beginning. His students still saw him as unusual, as different from normal people. They respected his abilities, but they still thought of him as an exception. They needed to understand that his calmness under pressure, his ability to read situations quickly, and his skill at solving problems were not special human talents. They were normal for anyone who grew up learning to survive. Jake looked at his lesson plans for the coming weeks. Soon, he would need to show his students something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about humans and about what it meant to be civilized. He was planning a demonstration that would either earn their complete trust or terrify them beyond repair. The university had approved his request to work with a live specimen. In 2 weeks, he would be face-to-face with one of the galaxy's most feared predators. His students would watch him interact with a creature that had killed trained researchers and destroyed millions of credits worth of equipment. Jake hoped he was ready. More importantly, he hoped his students were ready to see what humans could really do. Jake was sitting in his office when Dean Zethkar walked in. The crystalline being was moving faster than usual, making sharp, ringing sounds with each step. Jake could tell something was wrong. "Professor Morrison," the dean said, "we have a problem. The xenobiology department has acquired a live specimen for research. It was supposed to be a simple study, but things have gone badly." Jake looked up from the papers he was grading. "What kind of specimen?" "A Korthek beast from Zarian Prime," the dean replied. "It is considered one of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The research team thought they could study it using remote drones and protective barriers." Jake had heard of Korthek beasts. They were massive creatures with razor-sharp claws and acidic saliva. They were smart enough to use tools and hunt in packs. Most civilized worlds had banned them completely. "What went wrong?" Jake asked. The dean made a sound like glass cracking. "The creature destroyed 3 expensive research drones. It seems to understand our technology and finds ways to break it. Worse, it is showing signs of extreme stress. The containment is making it sick, and if it dies, we will lose millions of credits and a rare research opportunity." Jake thought about this. "What do you need from me?" "The department head, Dr. Veltar, heard about your success with difficult students. She wants to know if you have any ideas for calming the creature down." Jake stood up. "I would need to see it first." "Can you take me to the lab?" The dean hesitated. "Professor Morrison, I must warn you. This creature is not like your students. It is a true predator. It has killed before. So have many animals on Earth," Jake said calmly. But every creature has reasons for its behavior, even the most dangerous. Predator is not evil, it is just trying to survive. They walked through the university corridors to the xenobiology lab. Jake could hear the creature before he saw it. Deep roars echoed through the hallways, mixed with the sounds of something heavy hitting metal walls. Other students and faculty members were avoiding this section of the building entirely. Dr. Veltar was waiting for them outside the lab. She was a Zephyrian, floating in the air with her soft blue glow flickering with stress. "Professor Morrison," she said, "thank you for coming. We are at a loss. The creature refuses to cooperate with any of our research methods." Jake looked through the reinforced window into the containment chamber. The Korthak beast was even larger than he had expected. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with thick muscles under dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Its claws were longer than Jake's fingers, and its eyes burned with intelligent anger. But Jake was not looking at the creature's weapons, he was watching its behavior. The beast was pacing back and forth in the same pattern over and over. Its breathing was rapid and shallow. It kept looking toward one corner of the chamber, then quickly looking away. "How long has it been in there?" Jake asked. 6 days, Dr. Veltar replied. "We have been trying to sedate it for research, but it resists all our chemicals." Jake nodded. "It is stressed. See how it keeps pacing the same path? And the way it looks toward that corner? It is trying to find an escape route. The containment chamber is too small and too bright. It feels trapped." "Of course it feels trapped," Dr. Veltar said. "It is trapped. That is the point of containment." "But trapped animals cannot be studied properly," Jake explained. "When an animal is terrified, its behavior changes completely. You are not seeing how a Korthak beast normally acts. You are seeing how it acts when it thinks it is going to die." The dean made worried chiming sounds. "What do you suggest?" Jake studied the creature for several more minutes. He watched how it moved, how it breathed, how it reacted to sounds from outside the chamber. Slowly, he began to understand what he was seeing. "I think I can help," he said finally. "But I would need to interact with it directly." The silence that followed was complete. Dr. Veltar's glow flickered rapidly. The dean's crystalline body went completely still. "That is impossible," Dr. Veltar said. "The creature would kill you instantly." "Maybe," Jake said, "but maybe not. Every predator species has ways to communicate that they are not a threat. Even the most dangerous animals on Earth can be approached safely if you know how. This is not Earth," the dean said firmly. "This is a Korthak beast. They are killing machines." Jake shook his head. "No animal is just a killing machine. They kill to eat, to protect their territory, or to defend themselves, but they do not kill for fun. If I can show this creature that I am not a threat, it might calm down enough for you to study it properly." Double quotes. Dr. Veltar floated closer to Jake. "Even if that were possible, the university could never allow it. If you were killed, it would create a diplomatic crisis with Earth. The insurance costs alone would bankrupt us." "Then let me try something smaller first," Jake said. "Let me observe the creature for a few days. Let me learn its behavior patterns. Maybe I can find a way to reduce its stress without direct contact." The dean and Dr. Veltar looked at each other. Finally, the dean spoke. "Very well. But you will observe from outside the containment chamber only, no direct contact." For the next 3 days, Jake spent hours watching the Korthak beast. He took notes on its behavior, its eating patterns, and its reactions to different stimuli. He noticed that the creature was more calm during the night cycles when the lights were dimmed. He saw that it preferred to eat in the corner farthest from the observation window. He realized that the constant humming of the containment field was making it nervous. On the 4th day, Jake made his request. "I want to bring the creature into my classroom," he said. Dr. Veltar's glow turned bright red. "Absolutely not. Is insanity. Hear me out," Jake said. "My students need to see real predator behavior, not just videos and models. And the creature needs a larger space where it can move naturally. My classroom is big enough and we can set up containment fields around it." "Your students would be terrified," the dean said. Yes, Jake agreed. But they would also learn something important. They would see that even the most dangerous creature is still just an animal with understandable behaviors. The argument went on for hours. Faculty members from other departments joined the discussion. Some supported Jake's idea, saying that direct observation was the best way to learn about alien species. Others called it reckless and dangerous. Finally, Dr. Veltar made a compromise offer. We will allow the demonstration, but only under strict conditions. The creature will be surrounded by multiple containment fields. Medical teams will be on standby. We will have evacuation protocols ready. And if the creature shows any signs of extreme aggression, we will end the demonstration immediately. Jake agreed to the conditions, but he had one more request. I want to do this as a live demonstration with my students present. They need to see this in person, not through recordings. Your students will never agree to that, the dean said. They are still afraid of you. They will never sit in the same room as a Korthik beast. Jake smiled. Let me ask them. I think they trust me more than you realize. The next day, Jake stood in front of his class and made his announcement. Next week, we will have a special demonstration. The Xenobiology department has acquired a live Korthik beast for research. I am going to work with this creature to show you real predator behavior. The reaction was immediate. Buzzith's antennae went flat against her head. Groveseed's leaves rustled with fear. Several of the Zephyrian students started to float toward the door, but Socandria raised her hand. Her skin was showing rapid color changes, purple fear mixed with gold curiosity. Professor Jake, she said, will we be safe? Yes, Jake said. There will be multiple safety systems, but I will not lie to you. This will be dangerous. Anyone who does not want to attend can watch from another room through video links. The students looked at each other. Jake could see them having silent conversations in their various species ways. Finally, Buzzith spoke up. Professor Jake, she said, you taught us that understanding is better than fear. If you think we can learn from this, then we will stay. 1. By one, the other students nodded agreement. Even the most nervous ones decided to stay. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. These students who had been terrified of him just weeks ago were now willing to face one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators because they trusted him. The demonstration was scheduled for the following week. Jake spent his time preparing, but he also spent time thinking about what his students would learn. They were about to see something that would change their understanding of what it meant to be human. They would see that his gentleness was not weakness, and his knowledge was not just academic theory. They were about to learn that humans had become the dominant species on Earth, not by being the strongest or the most aggressive, but by being the most understanding. And sometimes understanding required getting very close to danger. The day of the demonstration arrived with more excitement than Jake had expected. Word had spread throughout Kepler Station University that the human professor was going to work with a live Korthik beast. Students from other classes had asked permission to watch. Faculty members who had never spoken to Jake before were requesting seats in the observation area. Jake arrived at his classroom early to check the preparations. The room had been transformed overnight. Multiple containment field generators hummed quietly around the space. Medical teams had set up emergency stations in the hallway. Security officers from 3 different species stood ready with tranquilizer weapons. Dr. Veltar floated nervously near the door. Professor Morrison, are you certain about this? We could still conduct the demonstration through holographic projection. No, Jake said firmly. The students need to see this in person. A hologram would not show them what they need to learn. Dean Zethkar arrived with a group of university administrators. Professor Morrison, I want to make the safety protocols clear one more time. If that creature shows any sign of aggression toward you or the students, we will activate the emergency containment fields immediately. Jake nodded. I understand, but I need you to trust me. Do not activate the fields unless I specifically ask for help. The creature will sense your fear, and that could make things worse. The first students began entering the classroom. Jake watched their faces carefully. They were scared, but they were also curious. So Candria took her usual seat in the front row. Her skin was showing rapid color changes, purple fear mixed with gold excitement. Buzzeth sat beside her, her antennae twitching constantly. Groveseed had rooted himself firmly to the floor, his leaves pressed close to his trunk. More students continued to arrive. Some were from Jake's class, but many were visitors from other courses. A group of advanced xenobiology students floated near the back. Several professors took seats along the walls. Jake had never seen his classroom so full. "Good morning, everyone," Jake said, and his voice carried clearly through the room. "Today you will see something that most beings in the galaxy have never witnessed. You will see a human interact with one of the most dangerous predators known to science." The room was completely silent. Jake could hear the humming of the containment fields and the rapid breathing of his students. "Before we begin, I want to explain what you will see," Jake continued. "The Korthic beast is not evil. It is not a monster. It is a highly intelligent predator that has been stressed and frightened by captivity. My goal is not to fight it or control it. My goal is to understand it." A student Jake did not recognize raised her hand. She was a Clixian from one of the advanced courses. "Professor Morrison, what if it attacks you?" Jake smiled calmly. "Then I will deal with that situation as it happens. But I do not think it will attack. Attacking takes energy, and predators do not waste energy unless they have to." The door at the back of the room opened and the transport team entered. They were pushing a large containment unit on wheels. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see the Korthic beast inside. It was pacing back and forth, its claws scraping against the floor. Its eyes moved constantly, taking in the new environment. As the unit moved closer to the center of the room, several students moved backward in their seats. The thornids pressed their branches against their trunks. The Zephyrions floated higher toward the ceiling. Even some of the visiting professors looked nervous. Jake walked calmly to the containment unit. The Korthic beast stopped pacing and stared at him. Jake could see intelligence in those eyes, but also confusion and fear. "Look at its body language," Jake said to his students. "See how its shoulders are raised? That means it is tense and ready to defend itself. See how it keeps looking toward the exits. It is looking for escape routes. This is not an animal that wants to fight. This is an animal that wants to survive." Jake began to lower the containment fields. Immediately, sounds of alarm came from around the room. Several students started to stand up, ready to run. Dr. Valtara's glow turned bright. "Red?" "Everyone stay calm," Jake said in a steady voice. "Movement and noise will make the creature more nervous. Just watch and learn." The energy barriers flickered and disappeared. The Korthic beast was now free in the classroom with only the outer containment fields to prevent it from reaching the students. For a moment, nothing happened. The creature stood still, looking around the room with its intelligent eyes. Then it took a step forward, and Jake could hear several students gasp, but Jake was not looking at the creature's claws or its powerful muscles. He was watching its posture, its breathing, and the way it moved its head. He was reading its body language like a book. The Korthic beast took another step toward Jake, its mouth opened slightly, showing teeth that could tear through metal. Several students made sounds of terror. Jake did not move backward. Instead, he slowly lowered himself into a crouch, making himself smaller and less threatening. He kept his hands visible but relaxed. He breathed slowly and evenly. The creature paused, clearly confused by Jake's behavior. Most prey animals would run or fight when confronted by a predator. Jake was doing neither. "See how it tilted its head?" Jake said quietly to his students. "It is trying to understand what I am. It has never encountered a creature that acts like this." The Korthic beast circled around Jake, staying about 10 feet away. It was studying him, trying to decide if he was a threat. Jake turned slowly to keep facing the creature, but he did not make any sudden movements. "Why is it not attacking?" asked a Valari student from the back of the room. "Because I am not acting like prey," Jake answered. "Prey animals run, hide, or fight back. I am doing none of those things." The creature is confused, and confused predators are usually careful. Predators. The Korthik beast stopped circling and sat down on its haunches. It was still watching Jake, but its posture was less tense. Jake could see that it was no longer ready to attack or flee. Slowly, very slowly, Jake began to move closer to the creature. He kept his movements smooth and predictable. He made soft sounds that were not words but conveyed calmness. The students watched in amazement as Jake approached the dangerous predator. When he was about 5 feet away, the creature made a low rumbling sound. Jake stopped immediately. That sound means it is not comfortable with me being this close, Jake explained. I need to respect that boundary. Jake sat down cross-legged on the floor, still maintaining the distance the creature wanted. He began to talk to it in a soft, steady voice. He was not using words that it could understand, but he was using tones and rhythms that conveyed peaceful intentions. After about 10 minutes, something remarkable happened. The Korthik beast lay down on the floor. Though it kept its head up and continued watching Jake, its breathing became slower and more regular. It is starting to relax, Jake said quietly. See how its shoulders have dropped? How its breathing has slowed? It is beginning to understand that I am not a threat. Socandria's skin was showing colors that had no names in her language. Professor Jake, she whispered, how did you know it would react this way? I did not know, Jake admitted. But I understood that it was a frightened animal far from home. Every frightened animal wants the same thing, to feel safe. I showed it that I was not going to hurt it. The demonstration continued for another hour. Jake was able to move closer to the creature, though he never touched it. He showed his students how to read its moods from its posture and breathing. He explained how its behavior changed as it became more comfortable with the situation. By the end of the demonstration, the Korthik beast was calm enough to eat food that Jake offered it. It allowed the research team to take biological samples without stress. It even seemed curious about some of the equipment that the scientists brought near it. As the transport team carefully guided the creature back into its containment unit, Jake turned to face his students. The room was completely silent. This, Jake said, is what it means to be human. We survive not because we are the strongest or the most dangerous. We survive because we understand. Every creature, no matter how frightening it appears, has needs and fears that can be understood and respected. The silence continued for a long moment. Then Buzzif began to make a sound that Jake had never heard before. It was like musical buzzing, and soon other Clixian students joined in. Jake realized they were applauding in their own way. The Valari students' skin lit up with brilliant colors of admiration and amazement. The Thornids rustled their leaves in approval. Even the visiting professors were making sounds of appreciation, but Jake was looking at his regular students, the ones who had been so afraid of him just weeks ago. They were looking at him with new eyes, seeing him not as a dangerous Deathworlder, but as a teacher who had just shown them something incredible about the nature of understanding and courage. The days following the demonstration changed everything at Kepler Station University. Jake could feel the difference as soon as he walked through the corridors. Students who had never spoken to him before now stopped to ask questions. Faculty members invited him to lunch. Even the maintenance staff, who were usually invisible to professors, nodded respectfully when they saw him, but the biggest change was in his own students. When Jake entered his classroom the morning after the demonstration, he found something he had never seen before. His students were sitting closer to the front. They were talking excitedly among themselves, and when they saw him, they did not become quiet and nervous. Instead, they looked eager to learn. Professor Jake, Socandria said as he set down his materials, I have been thinking about what you showed us yesterday. You said that understanding is how humans survive. But how did your species learn to understand so many different creatures? Jake smiled. This was exactly the kind of question he had been hoping for. It took thousands of years, he said. Early humans had to learn about every animal in their environment. Which ones were dangerous, which ones were helpful, which ones could be hunted for food, and which ones should be left alone. Buzzith raised one of her front legs. But how did you learn without getting killed? Many humans did get killed, Jake said honestly. But the ones who survived were the ones who were best at reading animal behavior. They passed that knowledge to their children, and their children passed it to their children. Over many generations, humans became very good at understanding other creatures. Groveseed rustled his leaves thoughtfully. So when you looked at the Korthek beast, you were using knowledge that your species had been gathering for thousands of years? Exactly, Jake said. I was looking for the same signs that my ancestors used to understand wolves, bears, and big cats. The specific animals are different, but the basic principles are the same. The questions continued for the entire class period. Jake's students wanted to know everything about human development, about Earth's ecosystem, and about how humans had learned to survive on such a dangerous world. But Jake could see that they were asking deeper questions too. They were trying to understand what it meant to be intelligent beings who had learned to cooperate instead of just compete after class. Jake was walking back to his office when Dean Zethkar approached him. The crystalline being was moving with quick, excited steps that made bright chiming sounds. Professor Morrison, the dean said, I have just received a communication from the Galactic Education Council. They want to offer you a permanent position here at Kepler Station University. They are also asking if Earth would be willing to send more human teachers to universities throughout the galaxy. Jake was surprised. I thought the council was worried about having Deathworlders as teachers. That was before yesterday, the dean replied. The video of your demonstration has been seen by millions of beings across the galaxy. Educational institutions are requesting human teachers specifically because of what you showed them. Jake thought about this. What exactly did I show them? The dean paused, his crystalline form catching the light. You showed them that intelligence is not about being the strongest or the most advanced. You showed them that true intelligence is about understanding others, even when those others are completely different from you. Over the following weeks, Jake began to see the full impact of what had happened. His students were not just learning about biology anymore. They were learning about different ways of thinking and solving problems. They were asking questions about their own species and how they might develop better relationships with other civilizations. Silcandria stayed after class one day to talk with Jake privately. Her skin was showing colors of deep thought, slow-moving patterns of blue and silver. Professor Jake, she said, I have been accepted to the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. I want to specialize in interspecies communication. I think what you taught us about understanding behavior could help prevent conflicts between different worlds. Jake felt proud of his student. That sounds like an excellent career choice. You have always been good at seeing different perspectives. I learned that from watching you, Silcandria said. You showed us that even the most frightening creature can be understood if you are patient and careful. I want to help different species understand each other the same way. Similar conversations were happening with other students. Buzzeth was planning to study Earth's ecosystem to learn more about how species interact. Groveseed wanted to research how different civilizations had developed their relationships with nature. Even the quietest students were making plans that involved working with other species, but Jake's biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. Dr. Veltar, who had been so opposed to his demonstration, requested a meeting with him. Professor Morrison, she said, floating nervously in his office, I owe you an apology. I thought what you wanted to do was reckless and dangerous. I was wrong. You were being careful, Jake said. That is not wrong. Scientists should be careful. But I was also being closed-minded, Dr. Veltar continued. I had decided that the Korthek beast was just a dangerous animal that needed to be controlled. I never considered that it might be a frightened creature that needed to be understood. Jake nodded. That is a common mistake. When something looks dangerous, our first instinct is to defend ourselves, but sometimes the best defense is understanding. The creature has been much calmer since your demonstration, Dr. Veltar said. We have been able to complete our research without stress or aggression. We have learned more about Korthek beasts in the past few weeks than we learned in years of previous studies. What did you learn? Jake asked. Dr. Veltar's glow brightened with excitement. We learned that they are not just predators. They are social creatures with complex family structures. They use tools and teach their young. They even have what appears to be art. They create patterns in the dirt that serve no practical purpose except beauty. Jake smiled. Every intelligent species creates art. It is one of the signs of true intelligence. We want to return the creature to its home world, Dr. Veltar said. But we also want to establish a proper research station there, where we can study them in their natural environment. We would like you to help us design the protocols for interacting with wild Korthic beasts. Jake was honored by the request. I would be happy to help. But I think my students should be involved too. They understand the principles now, and they need practical experience. The research project became a class assignment. Jake's students worked with Dr. Veltar's team to develop safe methods for studying dangerous alien species. They created guidelines for reading animal behavior, protocols for non-threatening contact, and emergency procedures that focused on de-escalation rather than force. The project was so successful that other universities requested copies of their methods. The techniques became known as the Morrison Protocols, and they were adopted by research institutions throughout the galaxy. 6 months after the demonstration, Jake received a message that made him laugh out loud. It was from the Galactic Education Council, officially changing the classification of humans from dangerous Deathworlders to specialized interspecies communication experts. We have determined, the message read, that humans' unique evolutionary background makes them particularly suited for diplomatic and educational roles involving cross-species cooperation. Jake shared the message with his students, who celebrated in their various ways. Socandria's skin showed brilliant colors of joy. Buzzeth's antennae danced with excitement. Groveseed's leaves rustled with what Jake had learned was laughter. You see, Jake said to his class, sometimes being different is not a weakness. Sometimes it is exactly what the galaxy needs. As the term ended, Jake reflected on how much had changed. His students had learned far more than biology. They had learned that understanding was more powerful than fear, that cooperation was more effective than competition, and that the most important skill any intelligent being could develop was the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. The Korthic beast had been successfully returned to its homeworld, where it was now part of the first peaceful research program ever established on Zarian Prime. Jake's students had gone on to careers in diplomacy, research, and education. Some had even requested assignments to Earth, wanting to learn more about humanity's unique approach to problem solving. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humans. They were no longer seen as dangerous outsiders who had somehow learned to be civilized. They were recognized as natural teachers and diplomats, beings whose difficult evolutionary history had given them skills that peaceful species had never needed to develop. Jake knew that his time at Kepler Station University was just the beginning. There were thousands of species in the galaxy, and many of them still feared and misunderstood each other. But now there was a new approach to solving these problems, the human approach of patience, understanding, and finding common ground even with the most unlikely partners. As Jake looked out at the stars from his office window, he smiled. The galaxy was a big place, full of different creatures and civilizations, but it was also full of opportunities for understanding, cooperation,